Welcome back to 504 Road Trips. I'm Florence Broadhurst, and I'll be your narrator. Today, we'll be driving around Key West, Florida. We begin on Stock Island, which is one of several islands that make up the city of Key West. We're on US Highway 1 southbound, the very first US highway, at least if you have a list of highways in numerical order. We're also on Florida State Road A1A, which runs in fragments from the Georgia state line down the east coast of Florida, with its final segment here, running down into the middle of Key West. Together, these highways are called the Overseas Highway, which runs from the southeastern tip of Florida's mainland and island hops through the Florida Keys, eventually ending up in Key West. As I said earlier, the city of Key West is composed of the northern part of Stock Island, Dredger's Key, Fleming Key, Sunset Key, and of course, the actual island of Key West. Stock Island is named for herds of livestock that were once kept here, or it may be the name of an early settler. Nobody really knows. Stock Island is mainly a residential area, unlike the more touristy Key West, and has a population that lives here all year round. The island boasts a vibrant artist community with designated areas for artists and shops. It has 10 marinas and boat yards that provide living spaces for people on their boats, as well as offering temporary docking, charters, and various water sports activities. The island also features numerous restaurants and food trucks, along with a distillery and 2 craft breweries. I Love Stock Island, a local community organization, hosts a 3-day festival every December. This event includes a lighted boat parade, island tours, and culinary competitions. We cross the Cheryl H. Cates Memorial Bridge, which crosses Cow Key Channel, and we enter the island of Key West. Cheryl Cates was a local community leader who passed away in 2020. The bridge was dedicated in her honor on July 26, 2022. The eastern half of Key West is surrounded to the north and south by North Roosevelt Boulevard and South Roosevelt Boulevard. US 1 takes the North Road and A1A takes the South Road. We'll remain on US 1. After turning right onto North Roosevelt Boulevard, we see a number of hotels, including a Hilton Garden Inn, the 24 North Hotel, and the Beachside Resort and Residences. The island has lots of hotels, and all of the big ones call themselves resorts. So if you book a room, watch out for those resort fees. We'll also be driving through a commercial area here, with a number of shopping centers, restaurants and fast food places, grocery stores, and an abandoned Sears. And of course, there are more hotels as we drive along. The view here is pretty good, even though the camera is aimed directly into the sun. At the end of the video, we'll drive back this way with the setting sun to our back. At the next light, Sigsbee Road is to our right, which connects to a causeway that will take you to Dredger's Key. On the left is Kennedy Drive, which used to be called 13th Street. 8 blocks ahead will be an intersection with 5th Street, also known as McMillan Drive. In 1961, these two streets were renamed commemorating the meeting of President John F. Kennedy and British Prime Minister Harold Macmillan in Key West. Why they chose those two streets that are 8 blocks apart is beyond my comprehension. Also, Kennedy Street is only signed Kennedy Street, but McMillan Street is still signed 5th Street at every intersection, except for its junction with North Roosevelt. Here, we enter the Key West Historic District, Old Town Key West. The name of the street changes to Truman Avenue here. This, the earliest settled area of Key West. The Key West Historic District is home to many of the island's main tourist attractions, including Mallory Square, Duval Street, the Truman Annex, and Fort Zachary Taylor. In Old Town, you'll find traditional bungalows and grand guest mansions. Bahama Village, located southwest of Whitehead Street, is rich with houses, churches, and landmarks connected to its Afro-Bahamian heritage. The Meadows, situated northeast of the White Street Gallery District, is an entirely residential area. Many buildings in Old Town were constructed between 1886 and 1912. Key features of the local architecture include wood frame buildings that are 1 to 2.5 stories tall, set on piers about 3 feet above the ground. They often have peaked metal roofs, horizontal wood siding, gingerbread trim, pastel paint colors, side-hinged louvered shutters, and covered front porches with wood lattice screens covering the area raised by the piers. Two notable buildings in Old Town are the Ernest Hemingway House, where the famous author lived from 1931 to 1939, and the Harry S. Truman Little White House, where the president spent 175 days during his time in office. Additionally, Old Town is home to the Key West Cemetery, established in 1847, featuring above-ground tombs, notable epitaphs, and a plot for some victims of the 1898 USS Maine explosion. Ahead, we slow down for a rooster crossing the road. I thought that was a joke, but I really don't get it. Key West roosters are the most photographed inhabitants of Key West. Key West roosters descend from roosters bred in Cuba for fighting. For many years, a winning fight rooster would be a source of income and, of course, bragging rights. Additionally, since Key West was so isolated, residents of Key West kept chickens for their eggs and for sustenance. Cockfights are no longer legal in the United States, and there's a Popeyes on North Roosevelt Boulevard now, so a lot of chickens were released and left to their own on the island. Here at the corner of Whitehead and Fleming, we see the southern terminus of US 1, complete with an end sign and a mile marker 0. Getting this on film was our primary goal of coming to Key West, so now we wanted to head to the southernmost point in the continental United States. But we had some bad information and we ended up driving around the western end of the island, making the video tour even better. Peeking out from behind the trees on the left, you'll find St. Paul's Episcopal Church. It's open daily for prayer, meditation, and visits. Even if you're not religious, it's worth stopping by to admire its architecture and stained glass windows. The current building was completed in 1919 after the previous one was destroyed by the 1909 hurricane. This congregation, dating back to 1832, is the oldest Episcopal congregation south of St. Augustine. After we turn onto Eaton Street, look for the Tropic Cinema on the left. This retro-styled Art Deco theater opened in 2004 and features 4 screens with state-of-the-art digital projection, all while maintaining the look of a classic early 20th century movie house. Here's a bit more about Key West if you're considering a visit. Key West holds the distinction of being the southernmost city in the contiguous United States and is the westernmost island connected by highway in the Florida Keys. The main east-west street, Duval Street, stretches for 1.1 miles, over 14 blocks, running from the Gulf of Mexico to the Straits of Florida and the Atlantic Ocean. Duval Street is named after William Pope Duval, Florida's first territorial governor, who served from 1822 to 1834, making him the longest-serving governor in the state's U.S. history. As we saw earlier, Key West is the southern endpoint of U.S. Route 1, which is the longest north-south road in the United States. The island is located 130 miles southwest of Miami by air and about 165 miles by road. The single road that links the Florida mainland to the Keys is a lengthy drive, often taking 4 to 5 hours depending on traffic. Key West remained relatively isolated until 1912, when Henry Flagler's Florida East Coast Railway extended the Overseas Railway connecting the island to the Florida mainland. The Labor Day hurricane of 1935 devastated much of the Overseas Railway and resulted in hundreds of deaths. Following this disaster, the U.S. government converted the rail route into an automobile highway, which was completed in 1938, using many of the original railroad footings. President Franklin Roosevelt visited the road in 1939. In 1946, President Harry S. Truman established a working vacation home in Key West, known as the Harry S. Truman Little White House, where he spent 175 days of his presidency. Before the Cuban Revolution of 1959, there were regular ferry and airplane services between Key West and Havana. In 1982, Key West briefly declared itself independent as the Conch Republic in protest of a U.S. Border Patrol blockade on US 1 at Florida City, where the northern end of the Overseas Highway meets the mainland. This blockade caused a 17-mile traffic jam as the Border Patrol stopped every car leaving the Keys, allegedly to search for illegal immigrants. This severely disrupted the Florida Keys, which depend heavily on tourism. Today, flags, T-shirts, and other Conch Republic merchandise remain popular souvenirs, and the Conch Republic Independence Celebration, featuring parades and parties, is held annually on April 23rd. At this unnamed crossroad, on the left is Naval Air Station Key West, and to the right is the Truman Waterfront Park Cruise Ship Terminal. Straight ahead, the road leads to Fort Zachary Taylor Historic State Park. The park includes the historic fort, of which guided tours are available. Other activities include a beach and designated fishing area, and wooded nature trails. Visitors can rent umbrellas and lounge chairs, rafts, snorkels, and fins at Chicky Hut Beach Rentals. The park wasn't in the plans, though. Being late in the day, it seemed pointless to pay a day's admission for what would have been a short visit. As we drive around Key West, you'll notice golf carts and bicycles everywhere. Because of the relative isolation of the island, people come in on a ferry from Fort Myers or fly into Key West International Airport and don't have their own car to drive around. There are numerous websites from which you can rent a golf cart, and although it's more expensive than a typical rental car, it's easier to maneuver and park a golf cart. They'll even deliver the golf cart to your location and pick it up when you're finished with it. These low-speed vehicles are legal to operate on any road with a speed limit 35 miles per hour or lower, which includes every street and highway in Key West and even up to a certain spot on Stock Island. Much more cost-effective is a bicycle rental, although it requires a lot more physical effort. But you'll never have a problem finding a parking place. If you don't feel like pedaling all over the place, pay a little more and get an electric motorized bike. And like the golf carts, they'll deliver them to you and pick them up when you're done. Keep an eye on the sky to the right, and you might catch a glimpse of the Key West Lighthouse through the trees. On the left behind that brick wall is the Ernest Hemingway House and Museum. The author lived in the house from 1931 to 1939, and as a result, this is the most popular tourist attraction in Key West. The house is open as a museum, and dozens of descendants of Hemingway's six-toed cat, Snow White, still live in the house and on the property today. Even after many generations of cats over the last 90 years, around half of the cats have 6 toes. Here, at the end of Whitehead Street, we can see a major landmark. A concrete replica of a buoy marks the southernmost point in the continental United States that is accessible to the general public. The buoy was built by the city of Key West in 1983 and has been photographed millions of times. A webcam has been pointed at the buoy since 2010, and it has captured high seas during hurricanes, and more recently, on January 1st, 2022, 2 hooligans attempted to burn the buoy by setting fire to a Christmas tree at its base. The miscreants weren't good at covering their tracks. In fact, they used a credit card at a nearby bar, and all of their movements were tracked by cameras, including the webcam which caught the heinous act. They were identified within a week. They avoided jail time, but were sentenced to community service, a year's probation, and paid for the damage, which was just over $5,000. Meanwhile, city crews repaired the damage quickly, which was mostly limited to the decorative paint job. The buoy is marked with the claim of 90 miles to Cuba, but the actual distance is 94 miles. To dispel some myths about the southernmost point, note that this is the southernmost point in the continental United States. Hawaii is not in the continental United States. Yes, there's a point slightly further south in the Truman Annex of the Key West Naval Air Station. However, that point isn't accessible by civilians. Finally, Ballast Key is further south and now has a house on it, so it is an inhabited island. However, it's not generally accessible to the public, so it only counts to the guy who lives there. And good for him, as he does live in the southernmost dwelling in the continental United States. And finally, no, you can't see Cuba, even if you squint. At 94 miles, Cuba is far beyond the curvature of the Earth, and even the tallest building in Cuba doesn't poke up above the horizon. Now, we're going to make our way back to US 1 and find a hotel for the night. Enjoy the rest of the drive. If you're planning to visit Key West in the summer, be ready for warm weather. Key West has a tropical savanna climate with easterly trade winds and sea breezes that keep the summer heat in check. Temperatures rarely hit 95 degrees Fahrenheit, though you'll find 90-degree days around 56 times a year, usually between June 8th and September 24th. This period is shorter than in most of the southeastern U.S. Night temperatures often stay above 80 degrees. The highest recorded temperature was 97 degrees, reached on two separate occasions, July 19, 1880 and August 29, 1956. Key West has two main seasons, wet and dry. From November through April, the weather is mostly sunny and dry, with only about 25% of the annual rainfall. The wet season runs from May to October, bringing frequent, heavy tropical downpours followed by bright sunshine. These showers typically happen early in the morning, unlike in mainland Florida, where they usually occur in the afternoon. The lowest recorded temperature in Key West is 41 degrees on January 12, 1886, and again on January 13, 1981, meaning that Key West has never seen freezing temperatures in recorded history. The Florida Keys, including Key West, are susceptible to hurricanes. Recently, Key West hasn't been hit hard by major storms. However, Hurricane Irma did impact the area on September 10, 2017, as a Category 4 storm. Some locals believe Hurricane Wilma on October 24, 2005, was the worst in recent memory. The island was evacuated, businesses shut down, and an 8-foot storm surge flooded much of the lower Keys. Key West saw up to 3 feet of water in some areas, with 60% of homes flooded. MTV's The Real World Key West was filming during Hurricane Wilma and covered the storm. We'll wrap up the video here at the Hilton Garden Inn. Note that we've enabled channel memberships, so for as little as $1 a month, you too can help support our channel and get early access to our regular videos as well as the occasional members-only video. Click the link in the description to join. If you liked this video, please please give us a thumbs up, post a comment, subscribe, share, and follow us on social media, and join us for our next 504 road trip. I'm Florence Broadhurst. Thanks for watching.